Hello everyone, this is Medibot. Let's play Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Today we take on the True Arena, a series of challenging fights that require intelligence, determination, and guts to survive. And no character has more guts than Waddle Dee, so we're playing as him. Normally when you're playing as Kirby, you're given an opportunity to select your copy ability. However, Waddle Dee can't use those, so it's just off to the Warp Star and our first fight against Goliath. Waddle Dee's spear ability is almost identical, in fact, completely identical to Kirby's. The differences between playing as Spear Kirby and Waddle Dee can be boiled down to the difference in air mobility, as Kirby inhales air to fly, whereas Waddle Dee falls quickly, and the fact that you can never lose your spear due to taking damage. This turns out to be quite the asset in situations where you end up getting hit a lot. Goliath likes to stick to the walls, which gives you an excellent opportunity to use your upwards attack against him, and when he's down on the ground, you can easily perform a full combo, the last hit of which does an extremely high amount of damage. It's pretty simple to duck to avoid his rapid punch and energy blast attacks, and when he's sitting there pounding the ground, it's a prime opportunity for you to just attack away. During the second phase, when he moves a bit more quickly, it can be hard to get in. Right there I had to block to avoid taking damage from his ice spike ball attack. But as we fall, I can continue attacking and finish him off with a spear combo. Only a little bit of chip damage, and fly off to the next fight. In the lobby between fights, you're given an opportunity to heal and select a different copy ability, although in the True Arena, one of the abilities for you to choose from is always the Sleep ability. Now we're on to Grand Doomer EX. It's generally unsafe to be on the ground in the middle of the arena, but on the ground on either side is usually a pretty good place to be, and fortunately, Grand Doomer makes it even easier by frequently hovering right above our heads, allowing us to get easy damage in with an upward spear attack. If you're greedy, you can go for some moon drops here, but it's really not necessary. The important thing in this fight and all True Arena fights is to avoid taking damage. We've gotten him to his second phase, so he'll be a little more aggressive now. It's not quite as safe to stand under him during this part of the fight, as he will occasionally use that fireball attack, which can hit you quite quickly. Overall, the second half of the fight needs to be taken a little more cautiously. But overall, we still just want to be attacking whenever possible. Also of note is the fact that when you're fighting the Grand Doomer, his normal theme plays, whereas against most other bosses, the special arena boss fight theme plays. Next up is Metal General. Here we can see some numbers coming out in just a second. 317 off of that last hit of the spear. Now, of course, there's not much context for that. Metal General gives us plenty of time to attack, although I was a little too aggressive there. But as long as you know that during his initial charge attack he'll go forward and then back again, you can get a lot of damage there. You can also get a pretty good amount of damage while he's shooting his rockets off. Again, another full spear combo takes off a good chunk of his life bar. For now though, we'll just have to avoid his rockets until he comes back and fights us properly again. Remember, in EX mode, 3 rockets will fall, only on the third one. Be sure to avoid the explosions and the flames that crop up as a result. His mines are a little more powerful now, but they're still not a problem, and you can easily get rid of them using your spear. By destroying the mines and attacking quickly, we avoided having to deal with some of Metal General's more difficult attacks. Next up is Mr. Duder. Now, don't be fooled by how this fight is about to go. Mr. Duder isn't actually a hard boss. I just don't like to show him much respect, and as the True Arena shows, you can't really afford to be doing that in any given fight. Don't try and be fancy and parry the attacks there, just avoid them. Mr. Duder will give you plenty of time to get clean damage in, so don't go for any fancy tricks in this fight. sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. Now, of course, right after he transforms, he does his crashing attack several times, and I'm not quite foolhardy enough to go for damage here. He's also polite enough to not keep you backed in the corner should you end up in that sort of position. Remember that that attack is a grab, so don't try and get too fancy with it by just guarding on the ground. You can juggle Gordos in his second phase. These, of course, cannot be parried. Again, during this, it's best to just try and avoid the attack, which I, of course, tell you to do and then fail to do. The snakes are a bit irritating to deal with, so I'm glad I got rid of those before he had a chance to send them out. 3 tomatoes are available during the true arena. After taking one, they'll regrow as a small tomato, but then as nothing. Here's the first of the 2 mid-boss fight true arena rooms. Our first mid-boss is Kibbleblade, EX. Don't go for a Moondrop, you'll just hit him. However, Kibbleblade gives you a lot of times to attack, and also doesn't really try and stop you from just staying at full screen, making the strategy of using your Spear Throw quite effective, as your Spear Throw does not quite as much damage as the last hit of your Spear combo, but still an appreciable chunk off of the boss's life meter. Moundou is somehow, despite being a rock, quite a bit more agile than Kibbleblade, and it's important not to try and get too fancy when he's moving around. Remember, even though he's a big heavy rock, he can go into the air quite easily, so don't assume you're safe just because you're flying away. Some well-timed pokes finish off Moundou. Now we have to fight 2 at once, the Water Galbaros and Dubior. Water Galbaros is very good at controlling the ground, and Dubior is good at controlling the air, making this mid-boss team-up actually somewhat of a challenge to deal with. It's best to focus on one first, so that you can eliminate them and be free to move either in the ground or the air. Dubior likes to zip around very quickly, which means it can be difficult to get damage in, but at the same time, cautious play will allow you to avoid all of his attacks, and he'll gladly crash into the wall, allowing you to get free damage in. Remember that you do have to destroy the mid-boss's body before it will count as defeated and you can move on to the next stage. We've got part 2 of the mid-boss room coming up. First up is Gigant Edge. He has a sword and we have a spear, so we're at an advantage in this fight. It's important to just avoid the shockwaves, and remember that when he does his dashing attack, he will only give you an opening afterwards if he actually hits the wall. If he just stops and turns around, don't think he's vulnerable. His short hop doesn't really present too much of a problem, and we finish him off. Next up is a double fight against King Do and Bonkers. Now, Bonkers has a hammer which is strong against our spear, and as you can see, it's proving to be quite effective, and I'm taking quite a bit of a beating even from his body after I've defeated him. The body will disappear after a while, even if you don't hit it, but I need to be very careful against King Do to avoid being defeated here. Fortunately, other than his charge-up beam attack that goes along the ground, he doesn't have too much to fight you with at full screen, so you can use your spear throw effectively. Next up is Fatty Puffer EX. Fatty Puffer, again, gives you long periods of time where he stays on the ground, although sometimes if he's moving forward, it's not a good idea to try your spear combo. Remember that his rolling attack will go all around the screen, so don't think you're safe if you just stay on the ceiling. Afterwards, you have a good opportunity for a full spear combo. The fish he spits out can and will move, so don't think you're safe just because he's missed you with the initial volley. After you get him to phase 2, he'll grow larger, but this attack can be avoided either by staying on the ceiling when he does the back and forth, or if he does a different giant rolling attack, it's usually not too hard to tell what he's doing. Don't be afraid to guard against those small water drops, but don't try and guard the large beam attack, it won't work. It might be possible to stay right next to him and avoid the beam, but I didn't feel like taking any chances. Hopefully you can finish him off like I did, before he has a chance to use his stalactite attack, which, while not terribly dangerous, can sometimes catch you off guard. Next up is EX Wispy Woods. You still have to walk all the way to the boss from the top of the screen, so go quickly to keep a low time for the high scoreboard. Now Wispy is still not terribly difficult, although he is EX Wispy, which means he has a few more tricks than regular Wispy does. The important thing to keep in mind is that you're generally safe right next to him, which means a power like Spear is extremely useful in this fight. However, during his second phase, he will make spiky roots come out of the ground. Be sure to watch for the rumble on the ground to make sure he doesn't catch you off guard with them. However, Wispy's life is very low, and it should only take a few combos to finish him off. We'll grab a tomato to be safe. Next up is EX Landia. Landia has its own boss theme in the main game, and its special boss theme again plays in the arena instead of the normal arena fight theme. It again starts off with 2 of the wind attacks. Although you're invincible for a short while during the moon drop, that's not enough to successfully go through one of the wind attacks. However, if you're on the correct side of the screen when he moves over for the second phase, you can get a few attacks in. Be sure not to stay on the ground when he does his kicking attack. Jumping over that dive or staying in the corner is your best bet. He'll then move to the center to perform a horizontal sweeping flame attack. Although it is possible to get some more damage in here than I did, it can be a bit risky, and I don't recommend it unless you're very comfortable with his pattern. At half health, Landia splits apart, performing the vertical electric beam attack. Just know when to jump through and you'll be fine. Pretty easy to get a spear combo off when he finishes this. Here he'll fire a fireball in a circle, which I foolishly fail to get out of the way of. Now when he moves in towards the center, it's very easy to have time to just wail away with your spear and finish him off before he can use any of his really tricky attacks that his second phase likes to use. And off we go. Next up, we have to fight a gang of Sphere Doomers. First, we have a fight against the Spark Doomer by itself. Sometimes the Sphere Doomers will be low enough to the ground that you can successfully perform a spear throw, but sometimes they'll be a bit too high up for that. However, when you have the opportunity, take it, although, as seen here, they can go into the background to dodge. But some well-timed throws and safe play will finish it off. Now we have to fight against 2 Doomers at once, the Fire Doomer and the, as far as I know, Neutral Doomer. Now this can get a bit tricky, even though neither Doomer's attacks are particularly difficult to deal with, simply because they're both going at once, and this allows them to control a much greater area of the screen. Remember that the Fire Doomer's charge attack will go twice. And as we see here, that Gravity Well combined with the background dash attack can cause major problems. Lastly, we have the Ice Doomer. None of the Sphere Doomers have a particularly high amount of health. However, they're also capable of moving quickly and dealing damage very quickly as well. It's important to finish them off before you get exhausted and start making mistakes. The Ice Doomer, as you remember, can turn the screen upside down, so take care not to get disoriented. During this, he'll attack with the 3 spheres that he placed, but then 3 more that he shoots at you. Be sure not to get caught off guard by the extra attacks. Fortunately, he was polite enough to turn the screen back around. We can finish him off with a throw as he dives at us. I ponder taking the small tomato for a moment, as our next fight is up against the Lore Star Cutter, which can sometimes prove to be quite difficult. Decide to go for the small tomato before hopping into another dimension. Magalore will do his little song and dance at the beginning of the fight, as your nice level 8 theme plays, but you're allowed to begin the fight in short order. During the ore attack, I usually try and stay on the defensive, so I can use my dash attack to avoid damage. It can't be used while you're charging your shot, which is why I say I'm on the defensive. However, while using the orb attacks, you're much safer than when he's doing the ore, which moves very quickly. He'll then dash at you twice, first front to back, back to front. He has a shield up during this, so it's not possible to attack. This wind attack can be hard to avoid from the sail. Fortunately, I managed to interrupt it by making him transition to the second phase of the fight. Laura heads to the background to shoot stars at you that explode on impact with the foreground layer. If you're charging, you may be moving too slow to avoid them, so just let your guns stay cool and avoid the attack. A new color of orb appears, but it's not terribly dangerous. It'll move towards you a bit, then zoom in from the background. This is honestly a very good time to get damage in. Another wind attack, in my opinion easier than the first phases, forces us to fly around in a circle for a bit, but we can still get plenty of damage in while this is happening. Managed to finish the fight against Lore, having to use our dodge move a few times, but not taking any really big hits. The next fight is against HRD3, one of the bosses that appears only in EX mode. For some reason, he gets the Grand Doomer theme during this fight. We're immediately taken up the elevator to fight against him. When he uses his dual punch attack, this is a prime opportunity for Waddle Dee to stay at a safe distance and just use a spear throw for easy damage. There's not much you can do about the laser other than stay in the air. A quickly charged spear gets us some more damage, and HRD3 is at about half health. The missile attack, again, doesn't give you an opportunity to counterattack, but your upward spear keeps you pretty safe. It is possible to get damage in during the lariat, however, I wouldn't recommend it, as it's very easy to get hit yourself. Just take your free easy hits while he's doing his punches. HRD3's first form is defeated, and now he will attempt to land on us. Against this giant robot, the safest place for Waddle Dee to be is usually right underneath him. He'll charge up for a beam attack, but it can't hit you if you're in the gap of his cannon, and you can also get a lot of damage in. Be sure not to accidentally move into him while attacking, as your spear combo does take you forward. The spinning attack can sometimes put you in an awkward position, but it doesn't deal much chip damage. The punch attacks and drill attacks look very dangerous, but again, you're more or less safe if you're directly at his base. And with that, we finish off HRD3. Next up is a somewhat unusual looking figure. You may remember this from the credits. We finally get our chance to throw down with Galactonite, who made his first appearance in Kirby Superstar Ultra as the boss of the Meta Nightmare. Since this game allows you to play as Meta Knight, the closest thing it has to a regular Meta Knight fight is the Metal General, who still feels in some ways like a similar boss, but it's nice to have a fight against a more traditional enemy that is Kirby-shaped and carries a weapon. Now he has a lance, which counts as a spear, which means our weapon triangle matchup here is neutral. When he uses his tornado attack, he'll spend a lot of time recovering from it on the ground, which is a prime opportunity to attack. A lot of his other attacks come out very quickly, so don't get too aggressive. Once he gets to half health, his theme song will start playing, and he'll attack with special lightning, first outside, then inside, then staggered. It's unwise to stand right below him when he finishes. During this phase of the fight, he'll be a lot more willing to go to the background to perform special attacks. That giant laser can be dodged pretty easily by just flying around him. Those swords can deal heavy chip damage, so it's best to not try and guard them, but instead dodge them. I get a pretty hefty counterattack there. When Galactonite sends a large group of swords from the background, you're safe in either corner. I get caught by a quick jump attack, but managed to finish him off with my spear combo. Still, that fight took quite a bit out of me. Very glad I have that tomato left. As I nearly throw it off the stage and make it unable to collect. Oh, Waddle Dee, you will have your rest shortly, but not right now. It's time to fight Magolor. Magolor, much like Grandumer, likes to spend a lot of time right above you, which means that your upwards attack is a great ally in this fight. However, it can be difficult to parry his energy spheres. Fortunately, when he summons them in front of him, you're safe below him. When summoning thorns from the ground, it's pretty easy to avoid them while attacking upwards. Very quickly we've arrived at the next phase of the fight. Running to either side of the screen will allow you to avoid a trip into the dimension of pain. The hardest thing about dealing damage in this fight is that he moves around so much. Although the energy spheres can deal chip damage, it's usually better to just guard and take that small hit if you want to keep attacking a lot. Alternatively, you can be a bit less aggressive and dodge the attack properly. Magolor's Fiery Hex doesn't present a real problem for our hero. More Thorns gives us another good opportunity to get damage in. And we managed to finish off Magolor moments before being assaulted by his energy spheres. There's only one fight left. Might as well grab the small tomato before we go in for a fight against Magolor Soul EX. Magolor Soul's haunting theme song begins. As his entry animation plays, he opens his mouth eye and begins his attempts to destroy you. The juggle attack can sometimes throw enemies that you're not really well equipped to deal with, such as Gordo, against you. Fortunately, these Gordos deal extremely small amounts of chip damage, so guarding them is a pretty good option. Don't try and run all the way through that needle attack. With the needle attacks, quite often you start off in a safe space, so you don't feel like you have to do too much. A well-timed spear attack will allow you to parry those energy spheres. I probably could have parried the second wave as well. Finish him off with a quick upthrust before he manages to use his laser beam. During this phase of the fight, Magolor Soul will begin to use Ultra Copy abilities, beginning with a combination Ice Hammer attack. Be sure not to land on the ground before the spikes disappear. He then brings in his pair of Ultra Swords. It is possible to hit his hands for a little bit of damage during this. Next up is the Flare Beam, during which time I get a little too greedy and end up suffering quite a bit for taking one clean hit right there. Guarding that one, dealing significant chip damage, and then taking a third hit as the other Flare Beam comes out of the background. My life bar is not looking so good. Fortunately, Monster Flame is not a very dangerous attack and can be easily avoided. Having the wrong attack ready when Magolor comes into the foreground can mean missing an opportunity for damage. when Magolor sends his picture painting attack to the foreground, don't be in too much of a hurry to dodge, as you actually have quite a bit of time. His 6-way energy spheres can't hit below him, and it's also easy to parry some of them as you attack him with the spear. Magolor goes for another laser, and again, I get my last necessary upwards thrust attack in, and finish him off, completing this run of the true arena. And our time goes up on the high scoreboard, not quite as fast as my run with Kirby, but 21 minutes isn't too bad for a run with Bandana. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll see you all next time.